so great to be back. Thank you for joining today. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Ruby Garcia. I'm a leadership coach and hypnotherapist, first-gen Latina, who's had to navigate dual cultures, born to Mexican immigrant parents, grew up in a bicultural home, and I host the Latina Connection every other week, bi-weekly, to bring on different guests who, want to give information to our community, who want to educate, who have a message to share. I just want to really amplify folks in our community and harness each other's strengths, right? So that we can all become better. And it's been a while since I've been on here. Actually, I was thinking back, and I think my last LinkedIn Live was the first week of December. And so it's been 2 months. But the holidays get a little crazy, but I'm excited to be back, and I'm excited to have Yovanna with us, and I'll let her introduce herself in just a moment here. But let me tell you a little about Yovanna, and let me know if you're listening in. Let us know from where you're listening in. I see that Christina's here from New Orleans, and Juan is excited for this event. So Yovanna, I actually met Yovanna through LinkedIn, maybe about a year and a half ago or something like that. Is that probably right? About a year and a half, probably about a year and a half ago, we met on LinkedIn. We had a cafecito. I was on her podcast. We met up at Lollapalooza last year in Chicago. And right away from the get-go, and I'm sure you'll notice this about Yovanna, right away from the get-go, like I felt like this is my girl. Like I could have any real conversation with her, and so I'm excited to be kicking off, this new year with Yovanna and everything that she brings to this conversation and to our community, and just her authenticity and realness. Yovanna is the host of the Making Leader Moves podcast. She is a community builder. She cares so much about our community. She talks a lot about self-care, about mental health, and really about like living in our joy, which we don't often talk about, but she talks about prioritizing our joy. And she's, really into creating safe and healing spaces so that people can really show up as their authentic selves. And I this is one of the reasons why I love you and appreciate you so much is because of that realness. And you've been going through this little transition of really, you're now moving into the tech space too, but you're not leaving everything behind. It seems like more of an evolution. And so I'm excited to dive into this conversation. For those that don't know too, it's the perfect timing because I also, a little bit of a different path, but I would say that we're taking, we're in parallel directions because I returned to grad school this semester, specifically to study educational innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. And, so that's the theme for this next season of Latina Connection is really talking about those things. And so, Yovanna, I want to kind of pass it over to you and let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little about who you are, your upbringing, your cultural upbringing, your background, how you became a community builder, and let's take it from there.
Sure, Ruby. I'm so happy to be back with you, sharing space with you. This is so amazing. And kudos for you for going back to grad school. I don't think that's amplified enough. And so I'm really excited to have another comadre with me on this journey of AI, on this journey of technology, spreading the word, spreading the news on how to use it, leverage it to make our lives easier. And you're in the trenches, if you will. So yeah, you're
in my learning analytics class.
Yeah. So your insight is going to be beyond valuable for us. I'm so excited to learn from you and gather knowledge and share knowledge. So applaud you for that. When it comes to me, I'm half Salvadoreña, half Ecuatoriana. I was born in Houston, raised in Chicago, have an LA soul, but you can basically find me virtually because I love to travel. when it comes to community building, how I started off on that path was I was in the trade show business for a very long time, 10 plus years. And we ended up losing our jobs during COVID. The first things that were to go were events. So here in the United States, you are your job title and you are your compensation. And I was stripped from both simultaneously.
That's a
So
hard one.
it is hard. And when you travel 6 to 9 months out of the year, it's really hard for you to build community. And and because I was on the road all the time, like, sure, I had my comrades or my colleagues, but the trade show business is highly competitive too. So are you really friends or are you frenemies? Or are you just trying to get the job done and kind of bounce? So getting stripped of my title, getting stripped of compensation, and not having community sent me into a very downward spiral of depression quickly. And I knew I was missing something in life. I just didn't know what it was. And I remember I was doom scrolling through Instagram at the time. And I found this community called Latina entrepreneurs. And I was like, well, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I'm a Latina. So let's see what happens. And I joined the event and I ended up connecting with this woman. Her name's Moira. Shout out to Moira. And she ended up telling me about another community at that time, which was called the Mujerista. And she was like, there's so many women here. You're going to love them. We all come from different, backgrounds. We all have different experiences, different stories. And I became so involved in the community that there was an opportunity to become a community manager. And the director, Ashley, came up to me and she's like, I think you'd be a great fit. And I remember being like, no, girl, like, I don't know. I do trade shows, right? Like, I do events. I don't know if I do community. And she's like, you come to all the events, you give us feedback, you give us your insight, you let us know which events are missing, you let us know which ones you would love to see, which ones we think that we need more of. You're doing it, like, just do it with a title and some compensation.
Exactly.
Okay, like, it's okay.
It's who you are. It's who you are.
And that's what she kind of like let me know, like, girl, like, this is who you are. You are community, you live in community. And I realized that I was able to accelerate a lot of my healing through community, a lot of my mental well-being through community, a lot of spiritual healing through community. And because of community, your network starts growing. So financially, I started getting these like great business opportunities that were just like they were getting like showered upon, almost like bendecida, right? But it's because I was putting myself out there and just, again, sharing my experiences, my story, my journey. So that's how I got into community. And then what inspired me to focus on Latinidad specifically, I guess, was the fact that I started my community path. It just so happened to always be Latinas, right? So whether it was the Latina entrepreneurs, the Mujerista, We All Grow, it always centered through Latinidad, Latina specific. And I think it was because when I was in corporate, I didn't really have a lot of those folks around me. And even in high school, like, I didn't go to a high school that was predominantly Latine. So being able to come back to my roots and being able to just be me authentically is why now I strive in my own business to just show up, and it's okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because I mean I definitely relate. I was actually even this morning in my LinkedIn post I was sharing that how a lot of times in corporate spaces I was the only Latina. Even how I try to dress to fit in or straighten my hair or like I always wanted to look like the Pearl girls, the cardigans and the pearls, and because
I
that's what
bought
I
a
think.
pearl set myself. I still
And
have it. I still have it.
yeah, I loved all that back then because that's what I thought it meant to be professional until I started realizing like this is someone else's version and not the version. And I think too, like I also internally struggled with that feeling of, I both my parents are Mexican immigrants, but I grew up in a bicultural home. My dad is American. We lived in a white conservative city or suburb of Chicago. I went to a school that was like majority white. So it was also like a struggling of where do I fit in? And so, it wasn't until I was older that I really even started, I think, to embrace my Latinidad more, much like you did. Um, so what now? So you've been active in community, you've been building community. It was a need that you had and you created, and uh, now you're kind of in this next evolution. You're still creating community, but you're doing it in I guess you're using a different platform, and you're moving now more into like the tech and AI space. What has led you? I guess two things. One, my question is like, how has feedback from our community kind of shaped the direction that you've gone into, and like what's been leading you to this next evolution?
Yeah, so November 2022, I think, is when I started to see every other article out there, whether it was on social media, whether it was on different type of news platforms, or reading these articles and these journal pieces. Every other piece was, you will lose your job due to AI. You are going to lose your job due to AI. And it wasn't until, and then I started freaking out, right? I started, what I thought I was healed from turned out still lives in the back of my head of, oh shit, I can't go through this again. It was literally the PTSD of losing my job, losing a sense of security, losing a sense of identity. And this time it wasn't even the sense of identity of who I was. It was, again, just the financial security of where I stood, because I had worked so hard during the pandemic, right, to make sure that I was back to being as financially stable as I could be, and within growing your own business. And then all of a sudden you start seeing every single other article telling you like, well, you're going to lose it. So at this point I'm like, right. And then we have all of these other financial literacy people telling us like, invest in the market. And then you have that money scarcity mindset because you're first generation. You're like, no, wait, do I need to hoard it and save it because the world is going to crumble down? Which one am I doing here? And so I started talking to other Latina entrepreneurs. One of them was Paulette specifically. And I remember being like, do you think that AI is going to take over our jobs? Hey, Myrtle. And I remember she was like, no, I don't think so. And then I talked to a few more Latina entrepreneurs. And then, the majority of the feedback was, I don't think so, but we don't know. And then I started thinking, well, why don't we know? Is it because we're not in these spaces? Is it because we don't have the information needed enough to make an educated guess? Is my fear lack of not knowing this world? Just like there's so much money scarcity mindset around immigrants and first generation, because there's a lot that we don't know, right? We're financially illiterate, and it's our jobs to make sure that we get the education we need to make the best financial decisions for ourselves. Same thing with this technology that supposedly was going to take away my job and that was going to take away my financial security. And so this fear that I started receiving from all of these different news articles became curiosity, which started becoming education. And I just started taking courses online to make myself realize what AI is and what it can do and its capabilities and its pros, but also its cons.
Mm-hmm.
And well, obviously, I know we're going to talk more about that later on, but it took me just the self-awareness of, man, I'm fearful of this. It's okay to be fearful, but don't let it dominate you. Turn into curiosity, which ended up just being like, all right, we're going to go ahead and hit this edX. We're going to go ahead and hit these Coursera's. We're going to go ahead and like get onto every other AI newsletter, because you need to, if this isn't going to go away, then you need to start brushing up on it.
Yeah. I think I had a similar experience. I was actually at the Unidos US conference last year, and I can't remember what session it was, but Google, someone from Google was talking, and I just remember him saying that like AI is not something in the future. AI is here now. And if we don't get on board, this is the next digital divide 2.0. And I remember feeling that same kind of like, oh shit, like if I don't if I don't get on this, like, what am I going to be missing out? And it was a little bit of maybe initially a little fear, but I think it was also a little bit of excitement because I was like hearing and seeing some of the possibilities. And so I was thinking about, well, how can this impact uh, the greater good, right? I'm always thinking about the collective. How does this impact the greater good? How can we use this to, how can AI be used to move forward? Like food insecurity is a cause that I'm really passionate about. How can this help, Latina entrepreneurs, much like you? I was thinking about this. What about the future of, the future of work? And that was one of the big things that really made me, kind of even start to explore school for myself was, what does the future of work look like for Latinos? Will we have the skills? We're now going to be the majority. And I have a statistic, and I'm curious what your thoughts are and what because I really haven't dived into this part too much. But the World Economic Forum highlighted AI and machine learning as drivers of the fourth. They're calling it the fourth industrial revolution, and it said this future of jobs reports predicts that by 2025, which is next year, 85 million jobs will be displaced by a shift in the division of labor between humans and machines. At the same time, there's going to be some 97 million new roles that start to emerge. So where does the Latino community, where do you see the Latino community fitting in with all of this?
I think, and that's obviously true, and we've seen this happen before. I was reading an article, and I don't want to give the numbers because I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was hundreds of thousands of jobs that were lost once Microsoft Excel came out because people no longer had to do it by hand. All of the formulas, all of the data, keeping it on track, keeping it organized. But it opened up so many more jobs because now they needed managers, folks in the back end, making sure that these formulas were actually formulated correctly, customer service, like just so much was open. And I think for Latinos, it depends on the level of education as well as the age group. And the reason why I say that is because Lord knows I love my mom, but she gave me a very boomer statement when I was telling her about AI in the beginning. She's AI advocate now, which is amazing to see. And she, with her first response, when I remember I was telling her how I was using it at work, she was just like, oh, I don't know if I would ever hire you. Like, you're cheating. Like, you're not doing the work that you're supposed to be doing. And I told her, is it, or am I just working smarter because I'm leveraging a tool that I know how to use?
And that how to use is a critical piece. I think that not, like I know ChatGPT, Bard, some of these other platforms, anyone can go on and use it, but the more that you know about how to use it and how to engage
Correct.
with it, the better that your output will be, right?
Mm-hmm. And so when, she sat back and she thought about it. And well, of course she gave me like a snarky ass like comeback, right? Because she just had to. And
Moms.
then moms, just typical moms. And then she came back a few days later and told me, oh, I was listening to NPR and they were talking about AI and da 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 da. She's like, and this is kind of what you were mentioning. And so now she's so cute because she'll send me screenshots of different things that she's watching, whether it's NPR, Good Morning America. And then she'll like try to send me links of everything that they're speaking on. And then I've even taught her certain things that some of these companies are doing. And so I think in the beginning, it can be very hesitant and very resistant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're all human beings at the end of the day. It's just our nature to resist change. But if we don't evolutionize with the technology that is at hand, we will get left behind I mean, Ruby, we've talked about this before. Latinas only make 53 cents to a white man's dollar. If we are not using the same technology that they are using, that age gap will only get wider.
Yeah, definitely. What are some of the biases and prejudices that exist within AI today, and how do you think we can address some of those?
Obviously, the folks that are feeding these machines, the folks that are building these AI technologies don't look like you and I. I think the statistic is only 2.3% are within the AI realm of Latinos are within the realm itself. Latinas don't even make up 1% of that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it is. And so the fact that it's not us that are feeding these machines, the fact that it's not us that are designing these machines, the fact that it's not us that are even being sampled when beta testing is coming out for these machines. It's very harmful because the folks that are doing all of the ones that are designing, the ones that are feeding, already come with their own prejudices and their own biases. So they're not feeding them as accurately as they can. So it can be so AI can be more inclusive and diverse. So for me, like if you see a lot of my LinkedIn content, it's Spanglish, and so for me, it's going into these LLMs like Bard, like Claude, like ChatGPT, and feeding them my bilingual pattern and my bilingual branding, so
Mm,
it can get better to make the output that I need it to come
mhm,
out with. Does it get it right all the time? Of course not. And then that's just kind of when you feed it again. So you take it, you look at it, you edit it, and you refeed it and say, this is how I would like you to sound for next time, or this sounds more like what I need to see. And so you're kind of low key breaking the algorithm and making it work for you and for your community.
yeah, and I've seen that, it's when you brought up the biases too, I've seen that in particular with like I love to use the images, like to create AI images for like my newsletters and things like that. And it's been
Which
interesting.
platform are you using, by the way? I was going to ask you.
Um, I use either the Dolly,
Yeah.
is that it's called Dolly,
Yeah.
or the Bing image creator.
Okay.
So I'll use either of those ones and just see which ones I get the better image that
Mm-hmm.
suits what I'm trying to do. But when I do that, it's interesting to see what comes out. Sometimes it takes a couple versions to see like, you know, how how the um how the LLM interprets a
Yeah.
Latina or what a Latina should look
Yes.
like, right? And there was actually a study from MIT Media Lab that showed that facial analysis software had higher error rates for classing gender among women and darker skinned individuals. And so there's bias that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about like law enforcement or even different hiring practices and how AI can actually perpetuate some of those biases.
Well, we've seen it happen. There's a case study out there that is using AI to sentence folks to their jail time, to their jail sentence. So if you're only relying on a machine, if you're only looking at the zip code, you already have the bias because, right, as we know in Chicago, a certain zip code means a certain ethnic group. It also means a certain amount of money that you're bringing in,
Yep.
right? A certain amount of crime. uh it's not taking into account, right, what you have done in your lifetime to change. If you've already been incarcerated more than once, it's going to take a look at that. So people of color are already losing when it comes to using AI to or like law enforcement. And that's something that needs to be very highlighted because it's very scary.
Yeah, yeah. When there's
Because
already
like alone, sorry to cut you off, but like a white man is 4 times less likely to get arrested than a white man. So you've already started off losing, and then you're going to use a machine to just assess data and not characteristics, not how this person has turned themselves around, how they have not what have they done for their community? You're not looking at that. You're just going to feed it all this bias and prejudice data already to get a larger sentence for probably not a serious crime.
Yeah. No, I mean, and this is why we need to be involved in the development, right? And it's so fast changing right now, and there's so many things that are going on. And Juan actually brought up a great question, and that's what initiatives or programs are currently in place to support Latinos pursuing careers in AI and technology. Do you have any recommendations? Like for those, I think there are people that are interested, but they just don't know where to start. Where are some of the suggestions, or what are some of the programs that you've seen available?
I haven't seen any that are geared to Latinos specifically. And if there are, please, I would love for folks to share them in the comments, because I would love to be part of those type of programs. And because I haven't seen them, I'm actually creating them. I'm working on creating 3 different courses right now. I actually have a wait list happening. You got my newsletter, my first newsletter. I did mention it as well, because I don't see it, and that's frustrating within itself. And I think even some of these courses at times do become a bit challenging, because even the examples that they show are not relevant to us. So being able to create a course that's for my people, geared toward my people, giving examples of how we speak or how we may use it within the workforce is the aim. And so I'm trying to launch that in April.
Yeah. What a great resource that will be. And, it's interesting because I don't even know that, well, I can't really say for sure, but I know that I was at it was a future of work event about maybe back in late November, early December. It was here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina at UNC. And they brought in experts from, different large companies, including Siemens. I think it was like Infosys, Deloitte. And I actually did ask the question, and I said, the future, the workforce itself is changing in terms of demographics. Latinos are going to be 1 in 5, and AI is, making it's making its way into companies and organizations and changing the way that we work. Like, how are you thinking about that combination, and what are you doing about it? And it was really interesting because, I feel like I got a canned response from each of the folks that were there, where it was like, kind of like D&I is important, and, and we're trying to upskill, but there was what I didn't hear was the direct correlation or connection between those two. And it doesn't sound like, again, if someone knows otherwise, please feel free to, drop it in the chat or send me or Yovanna a DM on this, but it doesn't sound like people are actually thinking about, how the interconnectedness between those two things.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of, again, candid responses, no concrete, solid plan.
Yeah, felt like I was listening to a politician. And there's a question: if one wants to pursue shifting careers towards AI space, where do you start?
Yeah, I share this a lot with folks. I'm a self-made AI person. I'm self-taught, rather to say. So I went on Coursera as well as edX, and there's different kind of AI courses that you can take starting there. I know there's one for prompt engineering. That's the one that I highly recommend. I just finished sending out, I think it was a few weeks ago, a link for a free certification for prompt engineering. I could do another post with that link as well. Paulette had shared it on her, and so I reshared it. But yeah, I would say just start within, whether it's Coursera or edX. Is there any other platforms that you've seen before, Ruby?
The one that I've seen, and I was just trying to pull it up, and one that I've been interested in fact, they just launched a class yesterday. Unfortunately, it conflicts with a class that I'm taking at UNC right now, but the MIA Academy. There's an organization called the MIA Academy, and specifically
MIA? Okay.
MIA, and it's specifically for women, and they have various programming, and they have like a platform and a dashboard that you can get in and become a member for free of that. And then there's like an application process to, I think it's like a 6-week course or something like that. So they
Oh,
have
okay.
different things. So that's a different one. And I'll definitely, after this, maybe we can coordinate and
Yeah.
promote a follow-up post for some of those different courses and programs and links to it, because I think we just we have to start somewhere. And so it could be like taking I know you recommended that Coursera course. I'm taking that right now. I've been slow about it, but but even just what I've learned in that has made such a
Hmm.
difference in terms of engaging with like Chat GPT or
The
Bard.
output that you get
Yeah,
from the
exactly.
LLMs, because your input is more concise.
Like,
I was also going to recommend to check your local community college. You never know what's popping over there. There's a lot of different programs, because I went to a community college for the first 2 years that I went to uni, and it's changed a lot. And it's obviously a lot more affordable. They're a little more flexible. So LinkedIn does have some great resources. If you are, I believe, a premium member, they're free. And if you're not a premium member, I don't know how that works. Um, I haven't taken any of the LinkedIn courses yet. Oh, someone recommended Mia. So I'm going to get on Mia Academy and see what else.
yeah. Oh, and Google Cloud. I have heard of this Google Cloud course too. Someone else's.
Mm.
Yeah. So this is great. I love the sharing of information that's going on here. So continue. If you know of programs, drop that in. I'll make sure to capture all of them and we can definitely get a link out to the different available courses. And I think community colleges are also, yeah, that is a great resource. And, I think that's a little more affordable too, because that's the other thing is the accessibility, right?
Hmm.
Of being able to take this. Microsoft also has free courses.
Like in my library, for example, they have different, it's not Coursera, but it's something very similar. And they have over 500 different programs that you can do, and they're all free as long as you have the library card. So
Oh,
your
amazing.
library also has amazing resources.
Yeah, I'll
And
have to
also,
check that.
I'm here for all of this comunidad sharing. Like this is exactly what I'm talking about. Ruby and I are just on a stage, but it's popping in the chats, and like it's comunidad making sure that we level up our education here. So
Yeah,
shout out to
yeah,
everyone out here. Yes.
yeah, definitely. I love it. Okay, here we go. We're creating a whole list right here just through crowdsourcing. Um, So I want to transition a little bit because, as we were talking about in the very beginning, uh, a lot of your focus has been on building community. Are in the entrepreneur world too. And I know that, specifically Latinas and women of color, there's a very high risk of, burnout and overwhelm and, trying to do it all. Right. And so, what are, when we're thinking about AI, how can AI be used to kind of improve our productivity? I kind of hate the word work-life balance because I feel like, but
Yeah.
that, work-life blend or harmony. How can we use technology to facilitate that more in our lives?
Yeah, for me personally as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of you're wearing all the hats, right? You're doing the HR, you're doing the social media, you're doing the finances, all of it, notary, etc. And that's especially that's where burnout comes, especially if you're a caregiver, whether that's for your abuelita, any type of parent. If you are a parent, it just gets overwhelming. And so if you're open to it, just use, whether again it's Claude, Bard, Copilot, ChatGPT, use it to create your strategies, whether that's your marketing strategy, your business strategy, your creative content strategy. You can even break it down by quarters if you need to, if a year feels too overwhelming. I feel like at times that even quarterly can be a little overwhelming, so I do it by month. But it has helped me get the creative juices flowing. Or if I see that they have a really great idea, I'm like, okay, great, let's just expand on this one idea. I don't have to be on all the time when there might be something else that may be of prior importance, like taking care of a parent, making sure that their well-being is fine, or making sure, I live with a chronic condition. I've talked about my medical condition, making sure that I am allowed to rest and be a normal human being. So letting AI do what it can do.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I've used it, I've repurposed content through there. Because, and especially now, my schedule has gotten a lot busier this beginning of the year. And I, quite honestly, I didn't realize how much school would take out of me. It's been quite a learning curve, not coming from an education background and stepping into a master's. So I've had to do like where other people have some foundational learning, I'm having to catch up on that, I guess you could say.
Yes. Going back to school is no joke.
Oh my gosh.
I was talking, I forgot who I was talking. Oh, it was because Paulette's going to also go get her master's shot. So shout out to her. But I was like, there needs to be a course on teaching or reminding you what it is to go back to school, because it's beyond overwhelming.
Oh my gosh.
Once you go back.
I was like, y'all, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I was almost in tears yesterday. I'm taking a learning analytics class. It's got a reputation. Let me just say, when people ask what classes I'm taking, they hear that, they're like, oh yeah, we've heard. The professor is brilliant, but he's an expert, and he talks to us like we're experts, and he's asking questions and going through things, and I'm still, I feel like I'm the old person that's stuck, right? Because I'm 46, almost 47 years old, going back to school. Yesterday, I was almost in tears, just trying to, follow through. I'm not it's a lot about data and navigating data. And I hate spreadsheets, to be honest. When we talk about Excel, it's like, I'll be thankful if I never have to do a pivot table again, but apparently I'm going to for that. But it is definitely taking a mental toll on me. But anyways, all that to say that, like, I've used AI to help me, someone turned me on to, shout out to Adi. Adi, and she actually has a 30-day challenge that's kind of wrapping up right now, and I'll drop the link in a minute, about how to use AI. But she sent me this it's a Google Notebook app. So I can like upload journal articles that are very dense and very academically written, and it'll give me a summary of what it's trying to say, the bullet points and things like that. But I've also used AI to help me when it comes to meal planning for my kids. Or a month ago, we went to we were going to a museum in Charlotte, and I knew we had free time in the morning, and I knew I have two kids with opposite appetites. I have one kid that will he's the kid that'll want to order like escargot and and then I have one kid that just wants cheese and carbs. And so I was able to actually go onto ChatGPT and say, like, I'm spending it one day, I have one picky eater, one who doesn't eat, like, I'm looking for other we're spending some time at the museum, what are other low cost activities that we can do within this radius. And it was amazing. Like, I basically created our itinerary, using those tools. And it didn't take me nearly as much as kind of like scouring the internet and trying to figure it all out on my own. So it's, it can really help us with our productivity.
That's I like to call that part the personal assistant part, because when I talk about leveraging your business, talk about the strategies, the content, even the writing of the emails, and I'll give a better example of that later on in our chat, because that's a very important part for me. But yeah, for the personal assistant, like, I ended up doing that. We're trying to have a family reunion this year in May for 20 folks going to El Salvador for 15 days. And of course, my mom volunteered me to be the planner. And I was like, no, there's people that have jobs that do this. Like, I'm not going to do. What made you think this? And she's like, but you did such a great job on our Europe trip. And I was like, that was you and me. Like, I owed you that trip. That's different. Now you want me to do it for 20 folks? I don't think so. So after, right, we had that little tidbit. What did I do? First thing I did was open up ChatGPT and I let it know specifics. I'm going on a 15-day trip with 20 folks. Out of those days, I want 3 to include a volcano hike, some massage days, as well as some different types of food places that we can go to. And it broke it up by day as well. And if you needed to, you can even break it up between like the time within the day, morning, afternoon, dinner, or morning, afternoon, ¿cómo se llama? Evening. Well, yeah. But yeah, like that's the personal assistant side, or even letting it know, like, what do you have in the fridge, right? Like everyone's always trying to, before they go groceries, they wanted to get rid of the last 5 ingredients that are in there. Throw those 5 last ingredients inside of ChatGPT or Claude, whichever one you want to use, and say, make me a meal using these 5 ingredients. That's always fun.
Yeah. And tell me, how are you mentioned emails. I would love to know because I'm an email probably hoarder and I have a lot of emails that go out. So tell me, how can I use email AI to help with emails?
Yeah, I think this is a great leverage tool. So my father is an immigrant and he is a white collared worker, and he had his review not too long ago in January, the yearly review. And he was going to have a meeting with his boss within a few days, and he was able to see what the review was going to look like. So what questions was he going to get, how would he rate himself, etc. And right, with and I'm not saying that my dad's not amazing, like he is, but there's just, again, there's certain lingo that we don't know, or there's certain words that we know might be better and make us sound a little more professional than other words. And so he had asked me if I could, kind of just help him out with the review that was going to happen. And so I was like, oh, this is great. Like, let's use Claude, and like, what do you want to say? What's your answer to this question? Let's throw it inside Claude and let's see how to make it sound more professional. And it did, right? Like the 5 questions that he was asked, he did great. He loved it. He now uses Claude on his personal time. He doesn't use it at work, but so he had his review in real life, and then he came back and he told me, that it went great, that he did awesome. And I know, like, I could just tell that he felt more confident, that he enjoyed that review, if you will, because he went in con esa confianza of knowing bigger words, of being able to have what he wanted to say and his ideas maybe a little more detailed. So that's like how we used it for his review.
I love how your whole family, like, you're bringing your whole family in on the journey with you too.
Like, I have no choice.
FBI advocate, and like your dad's using it. And it's just like, that's, I think that's part of like that's part of leveraging the collectivism value that Latinos hold, right? Is like, hey, and that's part of the reason why we're here, is like to share this information. Let's all, there's enough to go around, right? Like,
yeah,
you don't have to hoard this information, but how do we use it to uplift and support and collaborate with each other? So I love that you're doing that even within your own family.
And then, like, for emails, right? Do you want to sound a little more professional? Is there a different tone? Is there something that, like, for example, I was working on a project and I was like, oh no, like, I need a raise. There's a lot of expectation here. And so this pay, it needs to be leveled up. So how many times has this happened where you're already shaking and you haven't even composed the email? And so I was like, oh no, I don't even have the time to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and open up. I don't even remember. I usually open up 4 or 3 different main ones. So Copilot, Claude,
I
ChatGPT.
didn't even
Claude
know.
is
I
my
didn't even
go-to.
know there was Copilot. I'm writing that down too.
That's the one that I showed you folks on the at
Oh, was it? Okay. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Maybe
That's where
I.
you learn how to do the images.
Okay. Yes. Yes. By
Yes,
the
yes, yes.
way, oh, Yovanna taught me how to do those images. I thought I was doing some other things. That is great. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Um.
Let's see. So anyway, so I just right, I was like, okay, I'm gonna need a raise. I let Claude know exactly like these are the 3 main points I want. And it wrote it up very nicely. And so there was no rechecking it 5 times, figuring out what time I was gonna send it. Wait, right, like those esos nervios that I used to get,
Mhm.
it was no longer there. So even within that, that alone is like self-care. Like I no longer have the stress of, because I had some leverage on upping up my game, whether that was the presentation, whether that was the wording that it was using, whether there was the strategy that it was going with. Like
Yeah.
I felt more at peace.
I recently even had a client use it in a not so great situation, but help leverage it in a situation where she had was dealing with a PIP, which is like, for those that don't know, is like a performance improvement plan at work.
Oh, okay.
And because there's so many emotions, right, when you're talking about someone's livelihood and things like that, there's a lot of emotions there. And so she was
Mm-hmm.
able to leverage that and then share it with me, and kind of we went through it together in order to take care of both her own needs, but then also
Yeah.
respond to something that she needed to do for work. And I want to give a shout out to Paulette, who's on here. If you're not already following Paulette on LinkedIn, definitely give her a follow. She's always giving away great content, and just she shares a wealth of knowledge and information and grants and all of that. So make sure to connect with Paulette. And yeah, using tech as part of our self-care regimen is so important. Do you have a preference? I'm curious. Do you have a preference? Like, you mentioned the Copilot, Claude, ChatGPT,
I
Bard.
love
Better, or how do you determine? You said you use all 4 of them sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I love Paulette. Paulette's like my BFF. I've shouted her out like at least 3 times. So thank you, Amiga, for making it. And yeah, she is amazing. She's actually the one who taught me Claude. Right now, I'm not the biggest fan of ChatGPT. I feel like it's a bunch of word vomit that's happening, as well as we know the free version only gives you relevant information until 2021. After that, it stops, and then you have to get the premium, as well as not being able to let you create images the way Dolly does through the free platform when you use it through Copilot. And there's just like and that's why I'm just like ChatGPT right now. It's easy once I have it in Claude. Claude is my go-to. Once I have it in Claude, I can literally just like copy and paste to see if what tweaks ChatGPT might make. But honestly, 8 out of the 10 times, I'm not. Like, even if I were to see if I needed tweaking in ChatGPT, I really don't need tweaking. It's usually Claude that I go to. Bard is really good if you need, and that's up to date, because it not only feeds LLMs, it actually uses the Google engine sites as well. So that's very up to date information. However, the way it's delivered is very googly.
Yeah.
So it's very bullet points, which is, I mean, like if you need something fast, it's great. And then it gives you like this big old explanation as to why it did this. So everyone has their own preference. There's sometimes that I know the Bard style works for the client's information that I'm working on. If I need it to sound more like myself, it's going to be between Claude and Copilot. Copilot is actually ChatGPT 3. I love Copilot because that's where you can do the free imaging with Dolly. So that's where you say, create me an image of, I think when we had done the class, we did a Latina empower or Latina in school, something like that. I can't remember.
Yes.
But Ruby, I don't know if you read this in my newsletter. Bar just came out with doing imaging as well for
Yes.
free.
Yes, I did. And I'm excited because I used a lot of the images, and I get it's actually, I think it's been a big hit with even the newsletters in terms of drawing people in because of the images that are coming out And it's a hit and miss. Sometimes you have to play with it, but I love, let's see, I think I have an image right here. I have played with it. If you can use it for your personal branding too, is what I want to suggest. And that's actually what I did out of the class that you taught, was I started playing with it and feeding it, like, cause I know, a little sneak peek, I know I'm thinking about really working on the visual side of my brand, which I haven't, quite honestly, I have not put any thought into it. In fact, if you look across my stuff, I've got different colors. Like, I just really haven't thought about it. And so I had started playing with it and thinking about, like, how do I build a personal brand that integrates some of my Latinidad, the traditional style, and then moving kind of into the tech arena. And, I got some fabulous, like, and just really great outputs and ideas from it that I don't know that I would have thought of. And I don't know if you can see this, but like, this is an example of an image that I
love it.
And I love it. Yeah, it's my screensaver and I've got it printed out and stuff like that. But you can use it to help you, even do things like, build your brand and give you, color, like color palettes. And there's so many great uses to it.
Yeah. And just FYI, I just read this morning. They will start watermarking AI illustrations in Facebook, Instagram. So all of like the Meta platforms, they just talked about that this morning. And FYI, Bard is going to become Gemini, and it's changing its name. They haven't decided, but they just made this announcement yesterday. And I was like, great, my newsletter was just talking about Bard. Now I have to change it to let folks know, like, hey, Bard is no longer called Bard. It's going to be called Gemini. How fast is that going to be? It could have probably changed throughout this discussion.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. And really quick, for those that are listening in, I'd love to know, how are you using AI right now? What tools are you using? Drop that in the chat so we can create a list and crowdsource that. But one of the questions I have, and I know we're close to wrapping up, but is, and I'm going to share some of these posts too. Paulette's like an angel, just like Yovanna. It is changing so fast. Like, you just brought up a couple, different things, and like everything is changing so fast. How do you keep up with it, and where do you go? And I do want to highlight one way that you can, I'll give a plug here right now, is by signing up for Yovanna's newsletter. How do folks do that, Yovanna? And then how else, in addition to your newsletter, how do you recommend that our community stay up to date with, the very rapidly evolving landscape of AI?
Yeah, on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see under the About Me section, it says if you want to get to know more about my AI and comunidad journey, follow my Substack. So the link for Substack should be on there. So that's how you sign up for the newsletter. What was this? I'm sorry. What was the first part of the question? Oh, how do I keep up to date?
Yeah. How does our community keep up to date too?
Yeah, I think, well, for first and foremost, I just want to say it is beyond ever changing. It's not something that's changing quarterly; it's changing hourly. Again, like I was saying, right? I did the newsletter letting everyone know that Bard now has imagery. Yesterday, I read Bard will become Gemini. Today, I read about watermarking, and sometimes it just gets so overwhelming, Ruby, that I have to say, you know what? Like, not this morning. Like, I usually start off my mornings con un tecito, looking at 3 different newsletters that I follow. And today was just not the day. I was like, I cannot start out my day thinking about AI, like thinking about all the changes, because sometimes you think, if this change is so constant, is it even worth learning, or is it even worth knowing?
Or is it worth waiting for too? I think that's what I'm afraid of, is like, I feel like there's a large people, it's like, there's too much going on. I'll wait till it settles in and then I'll engage,
Exactly. And so it becomes overwhelming very quickly because of the fact that it is so fast paced. And so just I think acknowledging that alone and being like, I don't have to know it all. Like, and that's what I'm an AI enthusiast. Right? I don't say like I'm the expert because I'm not trying to say I'm the end all, know it all, be all. Again, we just saw how amazing the group was with giving us different types of resources and tools for the courses
And
alone.
even
Like,
the experts are hard time keeping up with as fast as things changing, I'm seeing that
exactly.
too.
Yeah, so you just got to give yourself some grace. And so you're not going to know it all, you're not going to learn it all. There's too many platforms out here that are trying to get funding. And so sometimes I'm like, you know what? I can't even play with this tool yet because I'm still working on this tool. So just realizing what's more priority for you. For me, I use more LLMs, so like the Claudes, the Bards, the Copilots, the ChatGPTs, rather than more illustrative focused ones like Dolly. Again, like since it's not my forte or my expertise, I don't even really touch those realms. I know Victoria does because she just taught us a course on how to leverage different like AI Adobe, the Dolly, and then there was another one, the Mid Journey, I think was the other one. So being patient with yourself, realizing which one is your priority. Is it you write the illustration? Is it the LLMs? Is it going to be different platforms that do podcasting? I was actually going to bring this up to you because I'm taking this year off for podcasting because I want to start using AI within my podcast to
Mm,
figure out like the highlights, right? Help me with the content, with the reels, with all of that other stuff. But right now with creating these courses, I still don't have the bandwidth. As much as I use
yeah.
AI, like I still don't have the bandwidth because there's still only 8 hours in a day. And that's how much I choose to work. Like I need to still watch trash TV to for my self-care. Like shout out to all the Real Housewives because I just need that in my life. Or have that connection, and
Yeah.
like a lot of people talk about using AI to leverage their productivity or to make them more productive. And that's fine. Like if that's your calling, that's okay. But I'm also here to make folks realize that at the end of the day, it's also okay to just be a human being.
Hell yeah.
So if you want to take that extra 2 hours that you got back in your day to take that nap, actually go walk your dog and not like kind of put them in a yard and hope for the best. Um, or like having an actual chat with someone that you love, like that's okay too. Or like I said, like I personally love watching trash TV for like an hour. Like it's okay too. You don't always have to be on, you don't always have to be productive. Like it's okay to just use this technology to honor yourself as a human being. I love this technology because it helps me with my chronic condition. Like the 2 days that I have to be in bed and I can't look at a screen, I'm not worried because I've already gotten what I've needed to get done to accumulate for those days that
Yeah,
I'm out.
absolutely.
And rest, which I'm a human being, like I'm allowed to rest. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've definitely had that conversation before. There's a
yeah.
couple questions I want to answer, and we're wrapping up here. So make sure to sign up
Yes.
for Yovanna's newsletter. But let me go back and get some of these questions answered. Dolores, I'm not sure exactly what you meant. Does it take the place of Canva? Um, I'm not sure if you were talking about like the image creators or not. Maybe you could elaborate, and we'll come back to that one. Let me think. There were a couple other questions here, I think. What are some of the newsletters that you follow?
Yeah, I follow one called actually I don't know them off the top of my head, but I do have my email open. So if you want to give me a second. So I
Yeah.
follow
Oh,
three.
it's okay.
I follow one called the Rundown AI, the Rundown Tech, and then the Neuron.
Okay. And I know one that I've been listening to too in addition. And there's a free class that he offers too. Let me look. And he's on LinkedIn. In fact, he hosts LinkedIn lives daily and he records them for his podcast. Is Jeez. His name is Jordan Wilson. and it's the Everyday AI podcast.
Okay.
Is one I listen to as well. So if you have those drop there in there, and
Yeah,
you
because
kind
when we
of
do
go
the
catch up,
recap,
yeah,
you and
yeah,
I can add the sources that we shared along with
yeah,
whatever folks put in the
yeah,
chat.
absolutely. And you can always go to Yovanna's podcast and catch up too. Um, Insightful, thank you. Image creators, I know there's Dolly, there's the image Bing image creator. What other ones are there? Yvonne?
Mid Journey, and then I know
Midjourney.
Adobe has a component to it as well, but I think that's premium and you have to pay for that. So with all the sources that you and I have talked about, so Claude, ChatGPT, and Copilot, they have free versions for them. I know Dolly through Copilot is free. I don't know if you go just through Dolly itself if it's free or not. But then
I've
again,
upgraded. So now I'm paying the
okay,
$20.
yeah.
$20. Yeah.
And then that's like another option too for folks. Like, so with my courses, everything that I'm going to show, because access to me is so important, I want to make sure that I show folks what the free versions can do. And so I might make a course just for premium. I'm not sure yet, but again, my focus is inclusivity and making sure that we leverage the tools that we do have at hand. Because as you know, Ruby, like being an entrepreneur, that adds up quickly.
I was
So
just
if
gonna
you're
say I
doing
just saw,
$20 and if
yes,
I'm doing all 4 platforms, like that's $80 a month.
yeah.
So
I
I
was
gotta
just
pick
saying
two.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I was just saying that to someone because I was adding up all my expenditures and it's like those 20, 25. It doesn't seem so bad, but when you got when you have multiple of those, that starts to
exactly.
add up really fast. I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize this is how much I'm spending just to keep my business going every month. And so I've been looking for ways to kind of streamline or one stop shop kind of stuff because I've got a lot of little things here and there going out there and it adds up. Are there any AI recommendations for flyer creation?
So I know Canva's still working on their AI section, but it doesn't build you images specifically. So what you can do is just go through Dolly and then copy and paste that image, throw it in Canva and rebrand it with your, whether that's branding colors, your logo colors. What I will say though is it gets very spotty because of legalities. Is that your image? Is that the LLM's image? So when I do my newsletter, if you notice in my newsletter, like I just gave credit everywhere because I don't want to have a lawsuit come 3 months from now. So yeah, like there's no, I think it's just something that's being accepted that folks use, whether it's in the professional world, whether it's in their everyday lives or within their business. So I'm just a big person of give credit where credit's due. And even if that's with artificial intelligence, you never know. You'd rather give the credit than have a lawsuit and then that's when shit really hits the fan.
Yeah, exactly. Man, this is such a great conversation. It went by so quick. I appreciate everybody's feedback and not like sharing of knowledge and just all of it. Giovanna, it looks like you and I will have some work to do in terms of creating a list so that we can get it out there. I know there's so much to dive into. I definitely want to have you back again this season to talk some more. I'm
Yeah.
excited about your course too. That sounds fabulous. I know I'm going to be, I'm sure I already signed up. I'm going to have to double check and make sure, but definitely
Yeah.
get on that list that comes out in April. For those of you that are interested, make sure to, Argelia here, thank you for pulling that
Oh, thank you,
link.
Argelia.
Yes, so that folks can go and get that. So as we wrap up, and there's still comments coming in. Oh yes, AI user group on LinkedIn. There's also one really quick. There's a lot of local meetup groups too. Like I know I've looked in my area, and we've got like an
See, I didn't
AI.
even think about that. That's great.
But there's so many different resources, and it's just about sharing those. As we wrap up, and I'm curious from you, what do you hope for our community and the future of AI? What are some of your hopes or aspirations for our community when it relates to AI?
I just want us to come from a place of curiosity and not a place of fear, like the way I did, and just being very adamant in realizing that you can definitely leverage this, whether this is in your professional 9 to 5, whether this is in your business. Like I had met, right, I gave concrete examples of how I've used it for a pay up. How my dad walked in with confianza to a review at his job. And so knowing that it can definitely help us, and that yes, there are the biases that we know, but we can like finagle the algorithm and make it sound more like us, and be more on brand with who we are. And being patient, I guess, when it comes to the learning. Like my course is going to be for beginners. It's going to be for the folks, that are like in between my parents and us, because they needed to know, right? And I think sometimes when you're in this world all the time, you just think that folks know things automatically, right? Like when you're a brand manager, or when you're in illustrate, like when you do illustrations, or when you're logoing, you think that folks automatically know certain things, and they don't know. And so like even within that, surprising itself. So just realizing that it's cool, go take advantage of it and learn as much as you can, because again, there's no way that we should be making 53 cents to the dollar now. And if you're not leveraging on this, it's only going to the gap will only get wider for Latino women.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I really love about what you said about accessibility too, is that if you have a curiosity, whatever that natural curiosity is, whatever your passion is about, right? Whether it's branding, marketing, business, traveling, cooking, right? Like there's a way that AI can be integrated into that. And so don't feel like you have to go out and take courses online or go back to school. Like it could just be about integrating it into your everyday life and playing with it to do the things that you really want to do, right? So let that let your passions lead you to how to integrate AI into just your everyday life as well. So Yovanna, I thank you again. Thanks for joining us. For those of you online, thanks for being part of the conversation. Connect with Yovanna, connect with each other too. There were a lot of great questions and feedback coming in and suggestions. So make sure to connect with each other. Let's keep building community. Yovanna, thank you for being someone that just models community for someone that is you see a lack and you create. And I always just think like that's part of what entrepreneurs do. I feel like is like hold the hat of magician, because out of nothing, entrepreneurs like create something. And so thank you for being a magician, for sharing your knowledge with us and for the work that you're doing. Definitely here for it and look forward to having you on again and just
Yes.
continuing the conversation and future collaboration and all the things. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Ruby. Thank you, everyone.